In the heart of a desolate forest, a tiny dog lay frozen in fear, her body frail, her spirit nearly broken. She had been left with nothing but the cold earth beneath her and the eerie whispers of the trees around her. Just as hope began to fade, a stranger crossed her path, and with one act of kindness, everything changed. The forest was quiet, the kind of silence that carried an eerie weight. Tall, shadowy trees swayed gently in the breeze, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out much of the fading sunlight. Amid this stillness, a pair of frightened eyes peeked out from the underbrush. She was small, her fur matted and tangled with dirt and leaves. She trembled, her frail body curled tightly as if trying to disappear into the earth beneath her. She had been abandoned, left in the middle of nowhere with no food, no shelter, and no one to protect her. Every sound in the forest made her flinch. The rustling leaves, distant bird calls, and the occasional crack of a branch. Days had passed since she last felt the warmth of a gentle hand or heard the comforting voice of a human. Hunger clawed at her stomach, and the cold night air sapped what little strength she had left. Her fate seemed sealed, until he arrived. A man, walking along the forest path, caught a glimpse of movement in the corner of his eye. At first he thought it was a trick of the light, but then he saw her, a small, trembling dog, cowering behind a bush. She didn't bark or growl. She didn't even move, as though she had already given up hope. He paused, his heart sinking at the sight. Who would leave such a helpless creature to fend for herself in such a cruel and unforgiving place? He knelt down slowly, his voice soft and steady as he spoke to her. "Hey there, little one. It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you." But the dog didn't trust him, not yet. Her body stiffened as he extended his hand, her wide eyes filled with fear. For her, humans had only meant pain and betrayal. Still, the man didn't give up. He knew that helping her wouldn't be easy, but something about her vulnerability tugged at his soul. What followed was more than just a rescue. It was the beginning of a journey that would change both their lives forever. This is the story of how one man's act of kindness turned despair into hope and gave a forgotten soul a second chance at life. The little dog hadn't always been alone. Once, she was part of a family that had promised to care for her, but ultimately broke that promise. She had been named Bella, a name filled with love and warmth, and her early days were a picture of happiness. Bella's days were filled with playful afternoons in the yard, her tail wagging as she chased after balls or lay basking in the sun. Her owners had adored her at first. She was a tiny bundle of joy, bringing life and energy to their home. But over time, as Bella grew older and less exciting, their interest began to fade. The trips to the park became less frequent, her toys lay untouched, and she spent more and more time alone. The decision to abandon Bella wasn't made in a single moment. Financial struggles hit the family hard. They began prioritizing other expenses, and Bella's needs fell to the bottom of their list. Veterinary visits were skipped, her diet worsened, and soon she became more of a burden than a beloved companion. Then came the day that would change Bella's life forever. Early one morning, she was loaded into the back seat of a car. She wagged her tail, thinking she was going on an adventure. But instead of heading to the park or the vet, the car veered off into an unfamiliar path, deep into the woods. Bella's excitement turned to confusion when the car stopped in a remote clearing. Her owner opened the door, whispered a quiet, "Stay here," and then drove away without looking back. Bella chased after the car as fast as her little legs could carry her, barking frantically, but it was no use. The sound of the engine faded into the distance, leaving her alone in the vast forest. The forest was a foreign, terrifying place for Bella. Accustomed to a warm bed and regular meals, she was now faced with the harsh realities of survival. The nights were cold, and the days were long and lonely. She scavenged for food, nibbling on scraps she found among the underbrush, but it was never enough to fill her empty stomach. Her once bright coat became dull and matted, her paws sore and raw from wandering aimlessly. Every noise sent shivers down her spine, the hoot of an owl, the snap of a twig, the distant rustle of leaves. She curled up tightly under bushes at night, her small frame trembling as she tried to hide from predators. The loneliness was the worst. She didn't understand why she had been left behind, why the people she loved had disappeared without a trace. Miles away from where Bella was struggling, a man named Daniel was embarking on one of his routine nature walks. Daniel had always found solace in the forest, a place where the stresses of his everyday life seemed to fade away. He was a kind-hearted soul, known in his small town for his love of animals. He had grown up with dogs, and though he didn't currently have one of his own, he often volunteered at the local animal shelter. Daniel's life wasn't without its struggles. He was recovering from a recent loss, a beloved dog named Daisy, who had passed away after years by his side. Daisy had been his companion through thick and thin, and her absence left a void that even the peace of the forest couldn't entirely fill. Still, Daniel made his daily trips to the woods, carrying a small backpack with snacks, water, and a camera to capture the beauty of nature. He never expected that one of those walks would lead to a moment that would change his life forever. As Daniel walked through a narrow trail one late afternoon, he noticed something unusual. At first, it was just a rustling sound coming from the bushes. He paused, thinking it might be a deer or a rabbit, but then he saw her, a small, trembling figure huddled under a cluster of ferns. Daniel's heart sank at the sight. Bella looked so fragile, her ribs showing through her thin, matted fur. Her eyes were wide with fear, and she made no effort to run or bark. It was as if she had resigned herself to her fate. Kneeling down, Daniel spoke softly. "Hey girl, it's okay, I won't hurt you." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a granola bar, breaking off a small piece and placing it on the ground a few feet away. Bella didn't move. He tried again, inching closer and laying down more food. Bella sniffed the air cautiously, her body tense with mistrust. She wanted to move closer, but her fear kept her rooted in place. Daniel didn't rush her. He knew better than to force trust from an animal that had clearly been through so much. Instead, he sat down on the ground, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. For what felt like hours, Daniel remained there, talking to Bella in a calm, reassuring voice. Finally, she took a hesitant step forward, then another, until she was close enough to take the food from his hand. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Daniel knew he couldn't leave her there. Bella needed help, and he was determined to give it to her. He gently reached out, and though she flinched, she didn't pull away completely. "I'm taking you home," Daniel whispered. "You're safe now." He wrapped her in his jacket, feeling the sharp angles of her malnourished body. As he carried her back through the forest, Bella's head rested against his chest. For the first time in days, she felt warmth, not just from his jacket, but from the kindness in his heart. As Daniel carried Bella out of the forest, the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the narrow trail. She lay limp in his arms, her frail body barely moving, except for the occasional flick of her ears at the sound of distant birds. Daniel spoke to her softly as they walked. "You're safe now," he murmured. "No one's going to hurt you again." The journey wasn't easy. The uneven terrain and fading light made each step a challenge, but Daniel was determined. He stopped occasionally to adjust Bella's position, ensuring she was as comfortable as possible. Every time he paused, Bella's eyes fluttered open, and she glanced at him with a mix of fear and curiosity. By the time Daniel reached his truck parked near the forest's edge, exhaustion had set in. He gently placed Bella on the passenger seat, wrapping her in a blanket he kept for emergencies. For the first time, Bella let out a soft sigh, her body relaxing slightly as if she finally understood she was no longer alone. Back at Daniel's small home, the reality of Bella's condition became painfully clear. Her fur was matted and tangled, her ribs protruded sharply, and her paws were raw and cracked. She flinched at every sound and movement, her eyes darting around the unfamiliar space. Daniel set up a cozy spot for her in the corner of his living room, a soft blanket, a bowl of fresh water, and some food. But Bella wouldn't eat. She curled up tightly, trembling as if she still believed she was in danger. Daniel sat nearby, giving her space while speaking to her in a gentle tone. "Take your time," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Hours passed, and Daniel stayed with her, eventually dozing off on the couch. In the quiet of the night, Bella slowly crawled toward the food bowl. Her movements were cautious, every step hesitant, but hunger eventually won. She took a few bites, then retreated to her blanket. When Daniel woke up the next morning and saw the empty bowl, a small smile spread across his face. It was the first sign of progress, a tiny step toward trust. Daniel wasted no time scheduling a visit to the local veterinarian. As he loaded Bella into the truck, she clung to the blanket, her body tense. The drive was quiet except for Daniel's soothing voice as he reassured her, "We're going to get you the help you need." At the clinic, the vet's initial assessment was grim. Bella was severely malnourished, dehydrated, and riddled with ticks. Her paws were infected from days of wandering through the rough forest floor, and she had a scar on her side that hinted at an old injury. "This little one has been through a lot," the vet said, gently examining her. "But with proper care, she has a good chance of recovery." Daniel nodded, his resolve strengthening. "Whatever she needs, I'll make sure she gets it." The vet prescribed a regimen of medication, a nutrient-rich diet, and regular checkups. As they left the clinic, Bella seemed to relax slightly, leaning her head against Daniel's arm as if sensing his determination to help her. The days that followed were filled with challenges. Bella's fear of humans made even simple tasks, like bathing her or giving her medicine, a test of patience. Daniel approached each moment with unwavering kindness, letting Bella set the pace. Bathing her for the first time was an ordeal. She squirmed and whined, her eyes wide with panic as the water touched her fur. Daniel spoke calmly, his hands steady but gentle. "It's okay, Bella. You're safe now." As the weeks passed, Bella began to show signs of improvement. Her appetite returned, and her coat started to regain its shine. She followed Daniel around the house, her steps hesitant but deliberate. Each time she wagged her tail, even slightly, it felt like a victory. But the emotional scars ran deep. Bella was still wary of strangers, retreating to her blanket whenever someone visited. Daniel understood that her trust had been broken, and rebuilding it would take time. One evening, as Daniel sat on the porch watching the sunset, Bella cautiously approached him. She rested her head on his knee, letting out a deep, contented sigh. It was the first time she had willingly sought comfort from him, and Daniel's heart swelled with pride. Daniel decided to take Bella back to the forest, not to the spot where she was abandoned, but to a nearby trail where he often walked. He wanted to show her that the world wasn't all bad, that the forest could be a place of healing and not just a reminder of her pain. At first, Bella was hesitant, her paws dragging as they walked. But as they ventured deeper into the woods, she began to relax. The rustling leaves and chirping birds no longer made her flinch. Instead, she seemed curious, sniffing the air and wagging her tail faintly. They came to a clearing where Daniel spread out a blanket and sat down. Bella circled him a few times before settling beside him, her body leaning into his. For the first time, the forest felt like a safe space, a place where she could begin to let go of her past. Word of Bella's rescue spread throughout the small town. Neighbors who had seen Daniel walking her began stopping by to offer support. One woman brought over a handmade dog bed, while another donated toys and treats. Daniel also received messages from friends and strangers who had heard about Bella's story. Many shared their own experiences with rescued pets, offering advice and encouragement. With each passing day, Bella grew stronger, physically and emotionally. She began wagging her tail when Daniel came home, greeting him at the door with cautious excitement. She even started playing with the toys that had been gathering dust in the corner. One day, as Daniel threw a ball across the yard, Bella surprised him by chasing after it. She stumbled slightly, her movements uncoordinated, but she returned with the ball in her mouth, her eyes shining with pride. Bella's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. But her story wasn't over yet. One evening, as Daniel scrolled through his emails, he came across a message that made his heart skip a beat. It was from someone claiming to be Bella's original owner. The message read, "I think the dog you rescued might be mine. I made a terrible mistake, and I want to make things right." What would Daniel do? Could Bella's past collide with her new future? And how would this unexpected twist change everything? Months of patience and care had led Bella to a place no one thought possible. From a trembling, malnourished dog abandoned in the forest, she had transformed into a lively, curious, and affectionate companion. Her once dull coat now glistened in the sunlight, and her eyes sparkled with a sense of security she had never known. Daniel often found himself marveling at her progress. He remembered the early days when even the softest touch sent her flinching in fear. Now, Bella walked beside him confidently during their morning forest walks, her tail wagging steadily as she explored the trails that had once been her prison. One morning, as they strolled through the clearing where they'd first bonded, Bella suddenly stopped. She sniffed the air, then bounded toward a patch of wildflowers, her energy uncontainable. Daniel laughed, a sound filled with relief and joy. "You've come so far, Bella," he whispered. One evening, Daniel received an email that stopped him in his tracks. It was from someone claiming to be Bella's original owner. The message read, "I think the dog you rescued might be mine. Her name is Bella, and I've been searching for her. I made a terrible mistake and I want to make things right. Please, if this is her, let me know." Daniel's heart sank as he read the words. A mix of emotions flooded him: anger at the person who had abandoned Bella, worry about what this might mean for her future, and fear of losing the bond they had worked so hard to build. The next day, he responded cautiously, asking the sender to provide proof that they had once owned Bella. Within hours, he received a reply with photos attached. There was no denying it. The young, vibrant dog in the pictures was Bella. The owner, a woman named Karen, explained that she had gone through a difficult time when she abandoned Bella. Financial struggles and personal hardships had clouded her judgment, and she had made a decision she regretted every single day since. "I know I don't deserve her back," Karen wrote, "but I need to see her one last time, please." Daniel agreed to the meeting, but not without reservations. He feared how Bella might react to seeing her former owner. Would she remember Karen? Would she revert to the scared, broken dog she had been when he found her? The meeting was arranged in Daniel's backyard, a place where Bella felt safe. Karen arrived looking nervous, clutching a photo of Bella as a puppy. When Bella spotted Karen, she froze. For a moment, it was as if time had stopped. Karen knelt down, calling softly, "Bella, it's me." Bella hesitated, her head tilting slightly as if trying to place the voice. Then slowly she approached. Her tail wagged cautiously, her steps deliberate. Karen burst into tears, stroking Bella's fur and whispering apologies. Daniel watched the scene unfold with a heavy heart. It was clear that Karen loved Bella, but he couldn't ignore the fact that she had once abandoned her. He knew the decision of what came next had to be Bella's. After spending time with Karen, Bella walked back to Daniel, her tail wagging confidently. She nuzzled his hand, then looked back at Karen as if torn between two worlds. Karen stood and faced Daniel, her expression filled with remorse. "I can see how much she loves you," she said softly. "You've given her the life she deserves, and I won't take that away from her." Karen handed the photo of Bella as a puppy to Daniel. "Please, just keep this to remember where she came from. And thank you for giving her a second chance." As Karen walked away, Bella stayed by Daniel's side, watching her leave. It was clear that Bella had chosen to remain with the person who had saved her, healed her, and shown her what love truly meant. Bella's story didn't just end with her recovery, it became a beacon of hope for others. Daniel began sharing her journey online, posting before and after photos and updates about her progress. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from people inspired by Bella's resilience and Daniel's kindness. Bella became a local celebrity, attending adoption events and inspiring others to give abandoned animals a second chance. She greeted visitors with her wagging tail and playful energy, showing them that even the most broken souls could heal with love and patience. Daniel often reflected on how far she had come. From a terrified dog left to fend for herself in the forest to a confident and loving companion, Bella's transformation was a testament to the power of kindness. One day, during one of their forest walks, Daniel and Bella stumbled upon something unexpected: a small, whimpering puppy trapped in the underbrush. Bella immediately sprang into action, sniffing and wagging her tail as if to reassure the frightened pup. Daniel smiled, realizing that Bella's journey had come full circle. She wasn't just a survivor, she was now a rescuer, ready to pass on the kindness that had saved her. "Come on, Bella," Daniel said, scooping up the puppy. "Looks like we have another life to save." When Daniel brought Bella home, the quiet, humble house that had once felt empty now felt strangely full. He carefully placed her on a soft blanket by the fire, but Bella wasn't ready to settle. Her body trembled, her eyes darting around the room. She had spent so long in the forest, struggling to survive on her own, that the comfort of a home seemed foreign to her. She had been abandoned before, and trusting again seemed impossible. Every time Daniel tried to approach her, she flinched, as if expecting to be hurt. The sound of his footsteps sent her into a panic. Her body tensed and her paws would move as if to flee, only to freeze in place when she realized there was no escape. It wasn't just humans she feared. Everything was new. The soft carpet, the strange smell of food in the air, the sound of the refrigerator opening, it all overwhelmed her. She had become so used to the harshness of the forest that this kind of comfort seemed wrong. Daniel understood this. He wasn't rushing her. He gave her space, letting her explore at her own pace, while also staying close enough to show her she was safe. Every time Bella took a small step toward him, whether it was moving closer to the water bowl or sniffing his hand for the first time, he praised her gently, speaking in soft tones. But there were setbacks. One morning, as Daniel entered the room, Bella shrank back against the wall, trembling violently. The fear in her eyes was raw, and she started to whimper. It was as though her memories of abandonment were still fresh, her mind replaying the moment she was left in the woods. Daniel froze, his heart aching at the sight. He slowly dropped to his knees, keeping his hands low to the ground, not wanting to alarm her. "It's okay, Bella," he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "You're safe here." Days passed, and while Bella's progress was slow, there were small victories. She began to wag her tail when Daniel spoke to her in the mornings, her eyes softening as she realized he wasn't going to leave her. She still jumped at loud noises and would sometimes cower in corners, but her trust in Daniel was growing. One afternoon, Daniel decided to take a break from his usual routine. He stepped outside and sat on the front steps of his home, the warm sun resting on his face. Bella, who had been lying on her blanket inside, noticed him from the window. At first, she watched him, hesitant to move. But then something shifted. Slowly, she padded toward the door, her body tentative but determined. She stopped at the threshold, her head cocked to the side. Daniel noticed her presence and smiled. "Want to come outside?" he asked gently, not wanting to force her but giving her the opportunity. She picked it up in her mouth, holding it for a few seconds before letting it drop. It was her first playtime in months, and for the first time in a long while, she felt something like happiness. From that moment on, play became an integral part of her recovery. She began to chase after the ball with enthusiasm, her tail wagging furiously as she bounded across the yard. When Daniel tossed the ball, Bella would run after it, her legs growing stronger with each step. The sight of her playing, running, jumping, and wagging her tail was a sign that Bella was healing in more ways than one. As Bella's physical recovery progressed, Daniel began noticing something unusual. She would sometimes react to certain sounds or sights with extreme fear, barking at shadows, running away from cars, or trembling when someone approached the house. One day, as he went through the papers he had filed from Bella's rescue, he discovered something chilling. In the paperwork, he found the address of her former owners. They had filed a report of a lost dog after Bella had disappeared, but no one had mentioned how she had ended up in the forest. The details were sparse, but one thing was clear. Bella hadn't been lost by accident. Daniel realized with a heavy heart that Bella's abandonment had been no mistake. She had been deliberately left behind, discarded when she was no longer useful. The pain of this realization hit Daniel hard. He had saved Bella from the forest, but someone had already given up on her, leaving her to die in the wild. The discovery weighed heavily on Daniel. He had always believed that kindness was universal, that anyone capable of love would never hurt an innocent animal. Yet, the evidence suggested otherwise. Bella had been abandoned, thrown into a cold, unforgiving forest with no hope of rescue. Despite the overwhelming sadness, Daniel found solace in the bond he had built with Bella. He had taken her in, cared for her, and shown her the love she had been denied. Bella was no longer the scared, abandoned dog she had been. She was thriving, learning to trust again, and building a life with him. But there was still work to be done. Bella's journey wasn't just about physical recovery, it was about emotional healing, finding trust again in a world that had turned its back on her. Daniel's role wasn't just as her rescuer, he was her advocate, her protector, and her new family. Bella's journey from a frail, abandoned dog to a thriving companion was nothing short of miraculous. Over weeks of care, her body began to heal. Her once dull, matted fur now gleamed in the sunlight, soft and golden. The ribs that had once jutted sharply beneath her skin were now covered with healthy muscle, and her limp had all but disappeared. She moved with a newfound confidence, no longer flinching at every sound or shrinking away from shadows. Bella had rediscovered her strength, both inside and out. When Daniel took her to the vet for a final checkup, even the doctor was amazed. "She's made an incredible recovery," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. Daniel beamed with pride. "She's a fighter," he replied, scratching Bella behind her ears. But her transformation wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Bella had gone from a terrified, distrustful creature to a joyful, loving companion. Every wag of her tail, every playful bark, and every contented sigh as she lay by Daniel's feet spoke volumes about how far she had come. The true turning point came one quiet evening. Daniel sat on the couch, reading a book, while Bella lay nearby on her favorite blanket. The house was peaceful, but Bella seemed restless. She paced the room, glancing at Daniel every few moments. "Everything okay, girl?" he asked, lowering his book. Bella stopped and looked at him, her eyes wide and searching. Then, in a moment that caught Daniel completely off guard, she jumped onto the couch and curled up beside him. For a dog like Bella, who had spent so long fearing humans, this simple act was monumental. She rested her head on his lap, letting out a deep, contented sigh. Daniel froze, his heart swelling with emotion. He gently placed his hand on her back, stroking her fur. "You're safe now, Bella," he whispered. From that moment on, Bella's trust in Daniel became unshakable. She followed him everywhere, on walks through the forest, to the local market, and even to his volunteer shifts at the animal shelter. Her once fearful demeanor had been replaced with a quiet confidence. One day, as they walked through the forest where she'd been found, Bella surprised Daniel by running ahead and barking playfully. She turned to look at him, her tail wagging furiously, as if to say, "This place doesn't scare me anymore." As Bella blossomed, her story spread beyond their small town. Daniel had shared her journey on social media, hoping to inspire others to help animals in need. The posts gained traction, and soon, Bella's story was being shared far and wide. One day, Daniel received a message that stopped him in his tracks. It was from a woman who claimed to be Bella's original owner. "I saw your posts about Bella," the message read. "I think she might be my dog. Her name was Daisy." Daniel's initial reaction was a mix of anger and confusion. Was this the person who had abandoned Bella in the forest? And now, after all this time, did she expect to take her back? He debated ignoring the message, but ultimately decided to reply. "If you'd like to meet Bella, you can come by," he wrote cautiously. The woman, a young mother named Claire, arrived a few days later. Her eyes welled with tears as she saw Bella, who was lying on the porch. "Daisy," she whispered, her voice trembling. Bella lifted her head, her expression curious but hesitant. Claire explained her side of the story. She had left Bella with her ex-partner when they separated, believing she would be cared for, but she hadn't known that Bella had been abandoned. "I searched for her," Claire said, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know she'd been left in the woods. If I had known, I would have done anything to save her." Daniel listened quietly, his emotions swirling. He could see the pain in Claire's eyes, and he believed her sincerity. But the question remained, would Bella want to return to her past? Daniel made a bold decision. He would let Bella choose. "If she wants to go with you, I won't stop her," he told Claire. "But if she chooses to stay, I hope you'll understand." Claire nodded, wiping her eyes. Daniel called Bella over, kneeling down to pet her. "Bella, it's your choice," he said softly. Bella looked from Daniel to Claire, her tail wagging hesitantly. She walked over to Claire, sniffing her hand, and for a moment it seemed like she might choose her. But then Bella turned back to Daniel, her tail wagging more confidently. She walked back to him, pressing her body against his side and resting her head on his knee. The message was clear. Bella had chosen Daniel. Claire smiled through her tears. "She's happy with you," she said, her voice breaking. "Thank you for giving her the life she deserves." As Claire left, Daniel looked down at Bella, his heart full. "You're home, Bella?" he said. "And you always will be." Bella's transformation was complete. She was no longer the scared, abandoned dog he had found trembling in the forest. She was a symbol of resilience, love, and the power of kindness. Daniel's story of rescuing Bella inspired countless others. The local shelter reported a surge in adoptions, with many people citing Bella's story as their motivation to give another animal a second chance. Donations poured in to support rescue efforts, and Daniel became an advocate for abandoned pets, sharing Bella's journey to raise awareness. Bella's life had changed, but so had Daniel's. Through her, he had found a renewed sense of purpose. Every wag of her tail reminded him of the impact one act of kindness could have, not just on the life of an animal, but on the heart of the person who saved them. Bella's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. From the trembling, malnourished dog Daniel had found in the forest, she had become a beacon of resilience and joy. Her once frail body now radiated health, her fur soft and golden, and her eyes sparkled with the light of a soul that had rediscovered love and trust. Every corner of Daniel's house bore the mark of Bella's presence. Her favorite blanket lay in the living room, her chew toys were scattered around the yard, and her joyous barks echoed through the halls whenever Daniel returned home. She wasn't just a pet, she was family. For Bella, the forest was now a distant memory. She no longer flinched at shadows or cowered at loud noises. Instead, she wagged her tail at the sound of Daniel's voice and greeted visitors with cautious curiosity. Her days were filled with long walks, playful afternoons, and quiet moments by the fire, where she would rest her head on Daniel's lap, her heart at peace. Bella's story, shared by Daniel through social media and local news outlets, had touched hearts far and wide. People were inspired by her journey, from abandonment and despair to healing and hope. The town rallied around her, hosting fundraisers for the local animal shelter and organizing community events to support rescue efforts. One such event was the Bella Walk, a charity walk held in the same forest where Bella had been found. Participants brought their own pets, celebrating the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. The funds raised went toward providing medical care and food for abandoned pets, ensuring that no animal in their community would face the same fate as Bella. Daniel often spoke at these events, sharing Bella's story to inspire others. "It's amazing what a little kindness can do," he would say. "When I found Bella, she was broken in every way, physically, emotionally, but all she needed was someone to care. Someone to believe in her. And now, she's not just my dog. She's a symbol of hope for so many." Bella became a local celebrity. Children would stop Daniel on his walks to pet Bella, and families sent letters thanking him for sharing her story. One letter read, "Dear Mr. Daniel, we adopted a dog from the shelter last week because of Bella's story. We were nervous at first, but now we can't imagine our lives without him. Thank you for showing us what love and patience can do." One evening, Daniel received a call from a national animal welfare organization. They had heard about Bella's story and wanted to honor her journey by creating a program in her name. The Bella's Second Chance Fund was established to help provide medical care, rehabilitation, and rehoming for abandoned and abused animals. The announcement was met with overwhelming support. Donations poured in from all over the country, and shelters reported a rise in adoptions. Bella's story had become a movement, a call to action for anyone who had ever considered helping a homeless animal. Daniel was invited to speak at the launch of the program. Standing on the stage with Bella by his side, he shared the moment he found her in the forest. "When I saw her, I didn't see an abandoned dog. I saw a soul that deserved love and a second chance. Bella taught me that kindness isn't just an action, it's a responsibility." As Daniel spoke, Bella sat calmly at his feet, her presence a testament to everything he was saying. When the crowd gave them a standing ovation, Bella wagged her tail, seeming to understand that she had become something bigger than herself, a symbol of hope for animals everywhere. Amid all the recognition and community efforts, Daniel cherished the quiet, everyday moments with Bella the most. The way she leaned into his hand when he scratched her ears, the excited way she greeted him every morning, and the simple joy of watching her run freely in the yard. One evening, as the sun set over the forest, Daniel and Bella sat on the porch, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. Bella rested her head on his knee, her eyes closing in contentment. You've come a long way, haven't you? Daniel murmured, his voice filled with warmth. Bella wagged her tail lazily in response. In that moment, Daniel felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for Bella, but for the lesson she had taught him. She had reminded him of the power of compassion, the importance of resilience, and the beauty of second chances. Bella's story wasn't just about her. It was about the power of kindness and the impact one act of compassion could have. Her journey taught valuable lessons. Every life deserves a second chance. Bella's transformation was proof that even the most broken souls can heal with love and care. The strength of kindness, Daniel's simple decision to stop and help Bella, changed both their lives forever. The ripple effect of compassion. Bella's story inspired others to adopt, donate, and advocate for animals in need, creating a wave of positive change. Resilience in the face of adversity. Despite her past, Bella found the courage to trust again, showing that healing is always possible. As Bella's story comes to a close, her journey leaves us with one powerful message: kindness can change lives. If this story touched your heart, don't let it stop here. Share Bella's journey with your friends and family to inspire more acts of compassion. Consider visiting your local animal shelter or supporting rescue organizations. There are countless animals like Bella waiting for their second chance, and you have the power to make a difference. Subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories that celebrate the incredible bond between humans and animals. Together, we can continue spreading hope, one story at a time.